Okay, now I want to go through with you a subject which I have mentioned briefly, and I want to examine it in detail. Well, let's start. Okay, you look on page 7 or 6. This is the blessing of putting on tefillin. It's at the bottom of the page. The first Hebrew baruch at the bottom of the page. And this is typical. I'm not picking this out because it's special in any way. This is typical of all blessings for performing mitzvos. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with His commandments and has commanded us to put on tefillin. Everybody knows that. Now, an exercise in the absolutely obvious. Do you see that there's something desperately wrong with this sentence? Something which you can't say in English and you can't say in Hebrew. Something which, if you wrote as an 8-year-old on a composition, the teacher would put a big red X and say, wrong, mistake, 10 points off. What's the problem in this sentence? One second. The other guys have it. Right? We're talking about every bracha of a mitzvah. Blessed are you, Hashem our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with His commandments and commanded us to put on tefillin. Yeah. So what's the problem?
There should be something in there, right?
No. Why? Blessed are you, who has sanctified us with His commandments and commanded us. It's a compound verb. Like, it's like George went to the store and bought milk. I don't have to say George bought milk. Right? It's another verb on the same subject. So that's okay. But, what do you see?
The switching of person?
Yeah, it says, blessed are you who has sanctified us with His commandments. Shouldn't it be your commandments? Why does it start with you and move to Him? And it's worse than that because the Kiddushanu with Hebrew that sanctifies us, it's also third person. So if I translated it out to put everything in, it would be, blessed are you, Hashem our God, King of the universe, who is the one that He sanctifies with His commandments and has commanded us. It's all He afterwards. Why is it going from you to He? Now, let's ask, what is the difference between you and He? I mean, there may be many differences, but there's one central difference in the way these things are used in language. We're talking about deep philosophy now, but there's a crucial difference between you and He in the way they're used in language. What difference do you know that you know between you and He?
Either the person is in front of you or he's not.
Right. While you can only be said to a person who's present. It can be used it can be used to refer to a person who's present. HE can be used to refer to a person who's absent. That's the crucial difference. That's why in Hebrew, the name for these parts of speech is nochach and nistar. Nochach means present, and nistar means hidden. So the question then will be, and this is universal. They all start with atah, with you, and then they move to nistar. Although some of the English doesn't get it because the words in English could be either way. But if you look at the Hebrew, you'll see that that's what happens. Why is it going from one to the other? Now, the standard explanation, which isn't the only explanation, and there are deeper explanations, but the standard explanation is this. The Kodesh Baruch Hu relates to us in two different ways, at least. One is where He's open and revealed. We perceive Him. He does things that we understand. And then there are times when he relates to us in ways that either we don't understand why it's happening, we don't understand his purpose, and sometimes he's relating to us in a way that we don't even see clearly that he's relating to us at all. Like nature is a divine product, but it is possible, with some effort, to miss HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the source behind nature, and to think that it carries itself. There's nothing behind it. So he relates to us in both ways. And when we make a blessing, we want to register both types of relationship. We want to have them both in our minds. And that's why both of them are here. And there's
Can we not just say that it's a result of it being in a relative clause? Like, if I were to say, you are the one who is teaching us, you don't say you is teaching us, you say you are teaching us. So putting in the asher would do the same thing.
No, you can't do that, because in English, you can say he is teaching and you are teaching. T-A-C-H-I-N-G is the same in both cases. But in Hebrew, it's not. It would be, but it won't help, because you're making them the same by using the same word teaching in both cases. And you're saying, therefore, it doesn't make any difference. But in the Hebrew, you can't do that, because one is kiddashanu, he sanctified us. There's kiddashtanu, you sanctified. The asher won't help you. If you're going to make it second person, you've got to change the verb. No. In English, you don't have to change the verb.
So in Hebrew, you could still say asher kiddashtanu.
You can, but it isn't what's said.
Right.
In order to make it universally second person, you have to say and libadatanu, not or vitzivanu. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not going to work in the Hebrew. And so now there's an emblem of how this works. You have the word mitzvah, mem tzadi vav hey. The last two letters of mitzvah are vav hey, which are the same last two letters of God's proper name, yud and a hey, and a vav and a hey. Now, the first two letters, mem and tzadi, there is a coding which the Gemara already mentions, called the atbash coding. Atbash means you associate the first letter and the last letter of the aleph beis, aleph tuf, then the second letter and the next to last letter, that's beis shin, then the third letter and the third to last, which is gimel resh. You go in from both sides and you associate the letters that way. And then, in certain contexts, you can switch a letter for its associated letter. So let's try that. We have mitzvah. Let's try with the mem and the tzadi to switch it in terms of the atbash coding. So the mem is 10 from the end, which would mean that its switched letter is a yud. And the tzadi is 5 from the end, which means its switched letter is a hey. Which means mem tzadi is a code for yud and hey. Which means now that the word mitzvah turned out to be the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, half revealed and half hidden. The last two letters are revealed as vav and hey, and the first two letters of yud and hey, which are the first two letters of God's name, are hidden in the mem tzadi. So the very word mitzvah embraces both ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu relating to us, hidden and revealed. And that's to teach us that when we have a mitzvah, we are relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in both ways. So now when you have a bracha, which you say on a mitzvah, but it's not only bracha, it's a mitzvah, as we'll see. But certainly a bracha and a mitzvah, you articulate both hidden and revealed because you're making a blessing on a mitzvah, which itself is a relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, both on the hidden side and the revealed side. Okay? Okay, now what I want to show you is that when you have rabbinic liturgy, there are contexts in which you always have the switch between second and third person, but if you look at the descriptive material that's associated with the second person reference, and the descriptive material that's associated with the third person reference, you'll see that they fit. The descriptive material that's associated with the second person reference is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealed, open, perceived, and active, way that we can understand. And the descriptive material that's associated with the third person reference is where he's hidden. so that this is carried out in the theme of the blessings where the shift between second and third person takes place. So let's start with Kiddush Friday night, which, if I remember correctly, well, maybe they changed the pages here. I thought it was a page 360. But let's see. Yeah.
So that would mean that when we are bringing the understatement of like all the brachot that refer in second person, it's things that are revealed, and all the things that are beyond or have an element of hiddenness, then those are in the third person. That's kind of the
Except that I'm saying that every bracha has both.
Right.
So it's not that this bracha is for revealed and this bracha is for hidden. Talking about now that they have both, although there are some exceptions, but they basically have both, and it's a shift between the two of them. So you'll see that. Now I'm going to give you a lot of examples. Some actually are more uniform, and some are not so uniform. So this is the Kiddush Friday night on page 360, right in the middle of the page, the main paragraph of Kiddush. Let's read it in English, and notice now this feature of the text that I've just pointed out to you. Blessed are you, Hashem our God, King of the universe. Now that He has sanctified us with His commandments. He took pleasure in us. And with love and favor, He gave us His holy Sabbath as a heritage, as a remembrance of creation. That's all He. For that day is the prologue to the holy convocations, a memorial of the Exodus from Egypt. No references to God there at all. For you chose us, and you sanctified us from among all the nations, and your holy Sabbath, with love and favor, did you give us as a heritage. Blessed are you, Hashem, who sanctifies the Sabbath. So, the last half is all you. It's all you. Notice, in a certain sense, there's an element here which is like, I would call it brutal. In the second line, you have third line, with love and favor gave us His holy Sabbath as a heritage. And the next to last line, your holy Sabbath, with love and favor, you give us as a heritage. Man, oh man, and Shev, it's the whole thing again, word for word. Your holy Sabbath, with love and favor, gave us as a heritage. Same thing twice. Only one is in the third person portion, and the other is in the second person portion. So I think the text is waving the flag. Yeah, holy and yours, and holy and Sabbath and heritage, all that's the same. But there's a difference between a third person presentation and a second person presentation. That's what if I'm reading the text and paying attention, and I know that our texts are extremely brief, then I'm putting things extra. It's very nice, we'll put it in a second time. No, it means it's two different ideas. Now, look in the paragraph and tell me, with what historical event is the first portion, which is the third person portion, associated? The creation of the universe. With what historical event is the second person portion associated? The Exodus from Egypt. Does that ring a bell? The Exodus from Egypt is one of maybe the most spectacular, continuous revelation of God's activity and having a prophetic perception of Him, like at the crossing of the Yam. If you include Sinai as part of the Exodus, even if you don't, right? It's a gigantic period of revealed interaction with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Creation, I'll remind you that the very last thing that was created in the world was?
Adam.
Good for you. Both answers are good. Both answers are good. I was waiting for somebody to say man, and then I was going to clobber him and say, no, it's woman. But Adam is a name for woman also. So, Vayikra Shmam Adam, Pasuk says in Parakeh. Their name is Adam, not his name. The last thing is woman. Okay, but humankind. Humankind is the last thing that's created. That means nobody witnessed the creation, not any part of it. Not any part of it.
What about the midrash that mentions like the tongs and the rainbow and all the things made Benish mattress?
What?
On the
Oh, but they weren't shown. They were made and hidden away until when they'd be shown later.
okay.
Right? They were not shown. The creation of them was not shown. So, and furthermore, the work of creation presents itself to us as the world of nature. And as I said a few minutes ago, it is possible, if one is strongly prejudiced and not too thoughtful, to miss the idea that nature doesn't carry itself, it's not independent, it's something which is an expression of a higher power. So therefore, nature is something in which God hides, not in which God generally reveals himself, though there are exceptions, but generally he's hidden in nature. So the association of the third person, which is the nistar in Hebrew, that which refers to something that's absent, or not present to me, is associated with creation. And the second part, which is the second person, which is where it's revealed, is the exodus from Egypt. It fits very well. The descriptive material fit the part of speech that's being used, or the person that's being used to refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Clear? Okay. Now let's take a look at benching. Oh, by the way, I should point out, when we do this blessing starts, blessed are you, and then switches to he. All of them start with blessed are you. So that doesn't count. That's in common to all blessings. That's what they're called blessing, because Baruch means bless. So when you're looking at the text of a blessing, don't count the Baruch Atah. That's not going to distinguish what the bracha is about. Okay. Now let's go back. One second. Yes, okay, 1 second here. I've got to calibrate the pump. Where am I up to? About 140, okay. Okay, done. Now, here we are. Okay, so now there are three main blessings in benching that are Torah ordained, and the fourth one is rabbinic. The first one on page 360, for the nourishment. So again, ignore the blessed are you at the beginning, and ignore the blessed are you at the end. Look at the body of the blessing and tell me first, what reference do we have to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Sorry? Yeah, but how do we refer to it? What kind of pronoun do we use? A second person pronoun or a third person pronoun? You see that it's he all the way down?
Yeah.
And even the verbs, which don't have the he in English, they're all third person.
Yes.
So it's all a third person reference. That's nistar. That's just something that's out. Now, what is the subject matter of the blessing? What is the descriptive matter talking about?
Nourishment.
It provides nourishment, whether it's for all people or all living creatures that need nourishment. It provides nourishment. How does he do that? Through the forces of nature. Not that he isn't doing it, and he's creating it and so on and so on, but the pattern that we see is the pattern, what we call the pattern of nature. That means he's hiding in this activity. He's not waving the flag. He's not showing us open miracles. We talked about open miracles when we spoke about the prayers over there. Right? These aren't open miracles. You don't make a blessing where you saw the sunrise. That's God did me a miracle in this place. So this is a third person reference, and it's to a set of phenomena in which God's presence is not revealed, so it fits exactly the pattern that we're talking about. And by the way, this is the first blessing, just like the first half of Kiddush was the third person half, so the first blessing here is the third person. Just like the first half of Kiddush was referring to creation, this is referring to the forces of nature. So there's a parallelism there. You begin to see how Chazal approach these things. Of course, Kiddush, the structure of Kiddush and the structure of benching shouldn't have anything to do with one another. They're not obviously related. Okay, now, the second blessing starts on, 187 and goes down to the first half of 189. Read through it. Don't be lazy and jump to the conclusion after 2 lines. Read through it and tell me in what way HaKadosh Baruch Hu is referred to in the whole of this section, without the Baruch Atah at the end. Yeah.
There's only one heap.
Yeah. Isn't that inconvenient? It's you, and then he. One he at the end. Oh, I think you're right. It's a quote. I'm talking about the rabbinic liturgy. I'm talking about the words that they wrote. They're bringing a verse to prove what they're talking about. That verse happens to be in the second person. I mean, in the third person. But the whole subject matter that they wrote is in the second person. So really it counts as second person. Now, what's it about? What's the descriptive material about?
Bringing us to our land.
Well, that, yes, bring us to land, and the Exodus, and giving the Torah. Yeah, oh boy, lots of stuff, right? Leaving Egypt and getting the Torah and bringing us to our land. Was God present, open, visible, understandable during that period of time? In spades. In spades. It was glorious, right? So using second person for the description of these events works very well. And it fits the second half of the Kiddush, because the second half of the Kiddush was about the Exodus and was written in the second person. So you have a parallelism of the first 2 blessings of the benching to the 2 halves of the Kiddush. Part of my goal here is to give you an appreciation for how careful Chazal were, and to induce you to think carefully about what they write. And if something doesn't fit, the themes don't fit, the structure, the vocabulary is funny, that's good, you're onto something. Look at the commentators or ask somebody, because there's something going on there. They were very careful with what they wrote. Okay, now the third blessing for Jerusalem. So first of all, go through it and tell me, what person is it?
Seems to be all in second person.
Seems to be all in the second person. It's all you.
It's all imperative as well.
Oh, good for you. That's the next point that I wanted to make. You could escape some of the implications here by pointing out that these are all what we would call requests in the language of command. In the grammatical form of imperative, they're all do this and do that. Do this is automatically second person. You can only issue a command to someone who's present. And since all the rest of it is parts of the context of the command, so you could say that that's what pushes the second person. But then you could push even further and say, but why is it all command? Why isn't some of it just straight descriptive? So it's not clear which one is pushing the envelope on the other one. But now, what is it about? What types of events are mentioned here in the context of these commands?
The building or rebuilding of Jerusalem.
Right, so that's, well, it's either, you took 2 out of 3 possibilities, right? It's building, rebuilding, or preservation, because it's already built. Of your city, resting place of your glory, which is the base of Mikdash, the temple, the monarchy, the house of David, your anointed, holy house. So, the temple is a place where there were open miracles. The Mishnah tells us, now, the Tosfos Shoshani and Yuma says only in the first temple, there were 10 visible miracles going on all the time. For example, no matter how hard it rained, the fire on the altar never went out. The smoke always went up vertically, no matter how hard the wind blew. And, now I'm much, much older than you are. I'm about 106. I remember a time before screens, flies were everywhere. We had meat, flies were everywhere. No flies were visible in the Beis HaMikdash. There's a giant abattoir. Animals being slaughtered and butchered and blood is being poured out. No flies? It's like astonishing. So you walk in there and you say, wow, God is operating here in a visible way, and that means this place is special. You can see it, you can feel it. King David had open miracles from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Numerous miracles. So these are references to historical events in which God was open and present, and it's all in the second person, so this fits. Now comes the last blessing, which is the rabbinic blessing, on page 191, for God's goodness. Okay, this is a bit of a mystery, and it's going to require us to push the ideas a little further. First of all, how is God referred to in this fourth blessing? And remember to forget the blessed are you at the beginning, because that's in every blessing. Third person all the way through. It's he all the way through.
In the beginning?
I'm sorry?
That's not what the beginning is also?
I said we're not counting the blessed are you, because every blessing opens that way. So that's not part of what indicates the content of the blessing. So aside from the blessed are you, all of it is in the third person. Now what's it about? Yeah, it's very, very general. It's about God's goodness, the way they put here the title of the blessing. Sustains us and provides for us and so forth and so on, and saves us and so on. But it doesn't mention any particular historical events at all. It doesn't hint at any particular historical events at all. So at this point you could say, look, if I'm talking about the way God runs the universe and how he provides for us, some of it is hidden and some of it's revealed. That's certainly true. And here, for some reason or other, the rabbis decided to write a glorious expression of praise to God's goodness, but they took the hidden side of it. I think that's basically right, because we are told that this blessing was made on the destruction of Beitar. Now, Beitar was an extremely numerous Jewish city, which the Romans conquered and slaughtered, and forbade the burying of the bodies for a period of time, enough time for normal procedure, physical processes to cause the bodies to deteriorate. And when they finally got permission to bury them, they were whole and fresh. So, the Gemara says, on the basis of that miracle, that the bodies didn't deteriorate, they wrote this paean of praise. To which the alert student says, but they all died. Like, okay, there was a miracle. We should recognize the miracle. But this Who is it? Extravagant praise of goodness for the fact that their bodies didn't deteriorate when they all died? Where's the balance here? Where's the sense of proportion here? I think it's a very good question, and I have an explanation. I'm not sure the explanation does the whole job, but I think it does part of the job. This happened as part of the portion of the Roman conquest. Roman conquest triggered the nearly 2,000-year exile of the Jewish people. There are two different types of exile. Exile is a period of what's called hiding the divine face. And I believe it's in Nitzavim where it talks about hiding the face. There are two verses. One verse says, Astir Panai, I shall hide my face. And the other verse says, Haster, Astir Panai, I will doubly hide my face. So there are two levels of divine hiddenness. I hinted at this 37 minutes ago. Okay, maybe it was 39. It's a little bit of a joke. Where I said that sometimes you know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing it, but you don't know why. That's single hiddenness. And sometimes it can appear that he's not doing it at all. It looks just arbitrary or random or just natural. And that's double Hester, double hiddenness. Now here we are at a moment where we're entering into a 2,000-year period of exile. 2,000-year period of hiddenness. It's very important to know what kind of hiddenness it will be. Whether it'll be a hiddenness that we can understand and appreciate that Kodesh Baruch Hu is doing it, but we don't know why. Can't put the events together and get an explanation. Or whether we're going to be abandoned to what looks like just blind chance, as if there were no guiding force. So, here there's a terrible destruction of a gigantic city. That's definitely a hiding of God's face when Jews are slaughtered. Yes, taking into account the present context. But there's a miracle that takes place that the bodies don't deteriorate, and God is signaling that this will be an exile of single hiddenness and not double hiddenness. I will always give you clues that I'm the one who's in charge, even though you won't be able to understand why it's happening, what the purpose is, how it's contributing to building rather than just destruction, but you'll know that it's me. There was, I don't think he's still alive, there was a Mashgiach in the Yeshiva in New York named Moshe Kalbach, and I met him a couple of times, and he said that the Talmud sometimes asked him about the Holocaust, Jewish suffering, and he said, so what's your theory? Your theory is that there's no guiding force, history is arbitrary and accidental, and nothing pushes in one direction or the other. Then why is it always us? Why is it always us? Why doesn't it vary from place to place, and the person to person, and group to group? Why is it always us? That doesn't look natural. So you stop and think and say, yeah, that's right, it doesn't look natural. So even though I can't explain this pogrom and that expulsion and so forth and so on, but it doesn't look like things are just random. Similarly, one of the chapters of my book is the survival of the Jewish people. I don't think there's any remotely plausible natural explanation for the survival of the Jewish people. I compare it with the survival and disappearance of other cultures in detail. So I think that this promise has been fulfilled, that although it's a hiding of God's face because of the things that we suffer, we don't understand how they work in particular, but we do know one thing, we're not abandoned. We're not abandoned. That would be justifying, to some extent, this paean of praise of God's goodness, even though it's in the third person, because we can't see in detail how it works. Okay? A similar idea with a similar structure. Why do righteous people suffer? Innocent people suffer, even without righteous. Righteous would be a much smaller group, but innocent people. Why do innocent people suffer? So the Gemara tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu asked this question of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to him, this is hidden. This is hidden. You can't know this. Ramchal writes about this in great detail. So Ramchal himself asks, and others ask, what do you mean it's hidden? Don't we have principles why righteous people suffer or innocent people suffer? If you look in the way of God by Ramchal, prior to chapters 2 and 3, he has something like 8 different reasons why righteous people suffer. Why do you call this a mystery? So he explains, there's a difference between having general principles of why people die, why people suffer, comparison, why people suffer, versus asking, but Ruvain, which principles that explain why people suffer apply to him? And in which proportion? Let's say there are 8 of them. Is it 2, 4, and 7? Is it 50% 2, 20% 4, and 30% 7? What are the reasons why he is suffering? And that, says the Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu, you can't know. You can't know. There are too many factors that are taken into account in his particular suffering that you should be able to understand and comprehend an explanation detail. So, it isn't as if we have no way to, so to speak, theodicy, to justify what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does in the world. We do. We have plenty of principles which, there are enough principles to cover every case. It's just that we don't know which ones really cover the case or don't really cover the case. So that's very similar to the idea here that what happens to the Jewish people, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world, but we can't see in particular why this has to happen at this time as opposed to what happens at other times that we don't have. We will have it in the future, but we don't have it now. Okay. Together so far? Okay. Now what I want to do is start to look at the blessings of the Shema, right after Baruch Hu, in Shachris. So, and I want to do it in reverse order because it's a little bit easier. The simplest one is the second blessing before the Shema. Now, let's see. This is the second of 2 elements. So according to what we've had so far, what we should have is here, second person. And it should refer to events where God is revealed. That's what the second element did in Shema, and that's what the second element did in benching, right? So we're on page 88. And this is from the middle of 88 or 89 until the beginning of the Shema on the next page. Read through it and tell me how the text refers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Second person the whole way through. So you see that when the Chazal want to, they can write a paragraph that's absolutely uniform. We've seen a few of those already. So if you have mixtures, it's going to be very problematic. Okay, so this is all second person. What events? Some of it is not events at all, and some of it is command, petitions. But what events are referenced here? Right, and in particular, not just a personal relationship, but what did he do to the Avos? He taught them. He taught them Torah. And that certainly is a matter of an explicit, open relationship. We should be able to do it. And then we ask the Kodesh Baruch Hu to bring us back to Eretz Yisrael, which under many descriptions, will be a matter of miracles, more spectacular, less spectacular, but certainly miracles are going to attend that context. So the references that there are to history are references to pieces of history in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealed. So here you have second person and references to periods in which he's revealed. That fits the pattern. Now comes the first blessing, which starts in 85, and skip the blessed are you. This is like 3 lines before the writing gets small. You could start, if you want, with he who forms light, and then go on and read. And it's all of 87 to the middle of 89. Read through and see what you see. What's that? This is all over the place. That is quite correct. After these paragraphs, which are so uniform, this is back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's very challenging. Now read through the whole thing and try to form an estimate of which is the majority. Is the majority second person or third person? No, you're right. It's back and forth over and over again. That means we'll have a lot of work to do to figure out what's going on.
From what I see, it's more third person.
More third person. And in fact, if you look carefully, it breaks into 2 halves. The first half, it switches back and forth, and then all of a sudden it goes into third person, and it's straight third person all the way to the end. So that means that the majority is third person, and it begins to look like the second person references are some kind of variation. Now, let's try it out. Let's try it out with the subject. Remember, this is the first of the 2 elements. It ought to be third person, and it ought to be referring to events which are not visible to us. That's what belongs in the structure. Okay, so what is this about? About the creation, which we pointed out already, is something which we weren't privy to. Also, it has the description of the
Bereshit?
no more than that. In the whole body of this blessing, the angels, and the angels are singing God's praises. The description of how they do it and where they are and the whole thing and the text, something we're not privy to. So the description here is of events that we're not observing. And the majority of the reference is third person. That fits the pattern. The problem is the numerous references in second person. So when I got this far in the analysis, I faced this problem and I thought, boy, oh boy, something's going on here. And I worked on it for a while. I came to realize that all of the verses that use second person are different in a specific grammatical way from all of the ones that use third person. All the ones that use third person are descriptive. They state facts. None of the ones that are second person state facts. The ones that are second person do various things. What they have in common is they're not just statements of fact. Some are petitions. Some are expressions of hope. Some are exclamations. But none of them are just, the cat is on the mat. Quote Paul Ziff. Now, if you're going to express a petition, or you're going to express an exclamation or a or a wish, a request, this has to be second person. You're asking the one who you're asking. The other two could be either way, but since it implies a relationship, putting it in second person makes it much more direct, much more connected, much more vivid. Whereas when you're stating a fact is neutral. A fact could be done in the presence or in the absence of the one you're writing about. You can write about somebody in China, you can write about somebody from 1,000 years ago. So all the descriptive ones use the third person, and the subject matter is absent subject matter. All that fits. The authors of the prayers saw fit to put in our reaction to the facts, our feelings about the facts. So if it's a petition, it means, given these facts, please do this for us. Or an exclamation, these facts are so overwhelmingly great, they're awesome. That's my feeling of how I feel about it. Or the circumstances are such that I wish that this and this would happen. Those are all my relationship to the facts, my expression of the facts, and there the text gives us second person. So I would say that the way to understand the general idea here is there's a subject matter, it has to be described, and it's described in third person, and it's a hidden subject matter. That's how it fits in. And they saw fit to interrupt it with these expressions of our own ideas about it, which are interruptions, and they're in the second person. That's the best that I can do to make sense out of this mixed passage. As we will see, the paragraph after Shema is much, much harder. Much harder than this. This already, I think I have something to say about it, but it's much, much harder. In this context, I want to mention to you something the Rambam writes. In Hilchos Brachos, the Rambam says that there are three categories of brachos. Some are petition, and some are praise, and some are hoda'ah. And the category of hoda'ah subdivides into three. There are brachos of praising God. Did I put praising before? Am I getting mixed up? No, I said no.
Petitions are said first.
No, I'm sorry. Let me say it again. Some are. I'm sorry. There's some other brachos that you make on blessings, on mitzvos, and some of the blessings you make on food and drink and that sort of thing. And then there's birchos hador. And birchos hador divide into praise, petition, and thanksgiving. Praise, petition, thanksgiving. So then you say, okay, come on, there are five altogether, aren't there? No, there aren't five. There's 1, 2, 3, and the third one breaks up. Now, I saw, unfortunately, one translation who says, and the third one is thanksgiving, and under thanksgiving you have thanksgiving and praise and petition. Thanks a lot. Thanksgiving can't be both the category and the subcategory. That can't be. But you see in the Hebrew, and this Rambam wrote in Hebrew, the category is hoda'ah, and the subcategory is hoda'yah. They're not the same. So, hoda'ah means acknowledgement, assertion, statement. That's edus. That's that's going a little too further. That's not the same. That's with an ayin, so it's not the same word. And we'll see tomorrow that petition and praise and thanksgiving are all types of assertion, acknowledgments, statements. They're built on statements with our reaction built in. That's why I want to talk to you about it. Okay, we'll do that tomorrow.